While retirement is generally seen as a time of relaxation and self-focus, God calls us to love, serve, and help others for a lifetime. He has been preparing us for this retirement season, literally our entire lives. In retirement, countless Christians enter a state of spiritual dormancy, not knowing how they are called to have an impact for God's kingdom. The Retirement Reformation seeks to encourage and empower the 50 million Christians approaching or in retirement to embrace the calling God has been preparing in them. When the world says it's time to stop, you can begin to have your greatest impact. Welcome to I Retire for Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, where our goal is to journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him.
Did you know that when you retire, your calling doesn't retire? Your calling is a lifetime calling, and if you're still around, God isn't done with you yet. I know you're fully aware of what you retired from, but what did you retire to? You've tuned into I Retire for Him, the voice and resource of the Retirement Reformation, online at retirementreformation.org. This organization, our organization, is dedicated to you, the retiree who loves Jesus and wants purpose for all of their days, especially the ones ahead of you. Bruce Brynsma, the founder of the Retirement Reformation, joins us today and is here to encourage you and walk with you through retirement. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg. It's hard once you've actually accepted the false reality that the American idea of retirement presents to you, that it's hard to realize that it's all a lie. As Jesus followers, we just don't get to have 30 years of vacation. Our calling is still on our lives, and as long as we're breathing, it's still going. So what's hard? It's hard to get a jump start. It's hard to get going and find purpose for each of our days. When we don't have to go to work, it's hard to find that purpose in a daily routine that doesn't involve getting dressed, getting in a car, and going. You've got to be your own self-advocate. There are so many things you could do with your life. Today is a day you can get started finding something to do that matches the calling on your life to what you do each and every day. And we at the Retirement Reformation can help. Bruce, once you've settled into that proverbial idea that retirement is 30 years of sitting in an Adirondack chair, it's pretty hard to get going and get started with a life on purpose. Why? Why is it hard to just get going and get up out of that Adirondack chair, except for maybe the fact that the Adirondack chairs, they're kind of hard to get out of?
Particularly the blue ones. I think, Jim, the answer to that, we can go back to our science classes, perhaps when we were in high school, and we learned about inertia, and we learned that bodies at rest tend to stay at rest. Bodies in motion tend to stay in motion. And when we've made that transition from our career into what the world calls retirement, or from the transition of one stage of retirement to another, typically in that transition, there are moments of rest, moments of leisure, perhaps, and the inertia sets in. So it's very human to find it hard to get going once you've stopped. Now, once you get going, then in fact, it's easier to keep going. But what is it that gets you going? What it is that gets us going is something that touches our emotions, that gives us that energy to be able to not only put your feet on the floor in the morning, but to get up and go do something. If that something has meaning and purpose for us, it gives us the energy that we need to be able to get the endorphins moving so that, in fact, we can, step into God's preferred future for us. If we don't have something of meaning and purpose, then the tendency is to simply stay at rest. And so it's a choice that we have, and it's based upon whether we have meaning and purpose in our lives, Jim.
So what do you think is the first step to becoming a self-advocate for our kingdom impact? What do you think the first step is to get up out of obviously get up out of the chair. It's probably a good step, but it's hard because this is not something that you hear on the street. You're not going to read it in the newspaper. You might not even hear it at church. What's that first step in becoming that self-advocate for our own lives to have kingdom impact?
I think the very first step, Jim, is connecting with the book of John and seeing what Jesus challenged us. And so, think about his life. His father sent him here, and every morning he needed to get up and face a whole bunch of people that weren't excited to see him, or were excited for the wrong reasons. He had to walk long distances, was constantly engaged with a whole variety of different kinds of people. And it was his mission that his father had sent him for that gave him the energy, I believe, to be able to take those next steps forward. In many ways, that's what he said we're to do, is that as his father sent him, I send you. Now, if you're not engaged, if you're not willing to be sent, and if you don't realize the value of the sending, then remaining in that Adirondack chair is going to be the option. We can be mesmerized by doing nothing. We can be mesmerized by, watching a ball game. And there's lots of different ball games on. As a matter of fact, it was interesting on Saturday, I happened to turn on TV, and for Pete's sake, there was a pickleball tournament from Denver. I was in Michigan, and there's a pickleball tournament. And so I watched it for about 10 minutes, and I finally had to kind of shake myself and say, Bruce, you really don't need to be mesmerized by pickleball. You need to get going. Maybe you need to play pickleball, but you don't need to be mesmerized by it. But I think there's all kinds of things that almost put us into a state of hypnosis, where in fact we can't, won't, don't take that step forward. I'm reminded, I think I've shared this on the podcast in some other contexts, but one of the sayings from my grandfather, which was, once begun is half done. And so if you've never once begun, you're never going to get to not only half done, but all done. And that's what the Father calls us to do.
So let's talk about some specific tools that the Retirement Reformation has already in its tool bag that help our listeners to figure out what those steps are, what that kingdom impact is that they can experience in their retirement. What's one tool that you love, that you see opens the eyes, the hearts, the minds, the souls of retired believers to purpose?
I think it's a 10-session workshop called Recreating Retirement. And what I love about it, Jim, is the fact that it takes us in a group setting, but individually, back to our roots of our belief. It takes us into what God has prepared for us. It walks us through the gifting that he has given us. It walks us through not only the physical but also the spiritual gifts that he's given us, and walks us through our passions and our experiences, because who we are in Christ and who we are is shaped by the work of the Holy Spirit and the experiences that we have and the way that we respond to experiences. So it's in that context that we grow in our relationship with Christ. We grow in our understanding of who we are, and we grow in the vision that we have of what God is calling us to do. When we have that in place, then it's so much easier to be able to take that next step. And because we just kind of feel like we're floating out there and we're doing nothing, when in fact it feels so much better to be doing something.
When you say 10 weeks, though, that seems a little overwhelming, but it's actually a fun study, isn't it?
It doesn't have to be done one a week. It can be done in an intense weekend. It can be done over a 3 or 4 day period. It's 10 sessions,
right?
10
it's
separate
fun,
steps.
Isn't it?
Oh, it is. I tell you what, and the reason why we suggest doing it in a group rather than individually is because you get to hear the experiences of the other people in the group. First of all, you'll learn things about them. Typically, it may be with friends or people you've known for a while, or even some family, and you'll hear things that, I didn't know that. Is that really true? Is that really what happened to you? And is that actually how you responded? And so it's fascinating to be able to experience that through not only through an examination of your life, but the examination of fellow Christ followers, and to do that together. Matter of fact, you can laugh together, you can cry together, and you can learn together, and you can be encouraged together.
It sounds like a fabulous tool. Bruce, when we come back in the third segment, I wonder if we could talk about some specific things that we're seeing in our communities across the country where retirees can plug in and find purpose, living out their purpose, making a kingdom impact. Would that be okay?
Let's do it. That'll be an exciting conversation. So make sure you stay tuned.
I'm excited about our upcoming second segment. We've got Mike Henry with Follower of One, followerof1.org, to come tell us about marketplace mission trips and how God is using him in his retirement years. Stay tuned for the next segment. We'll be right back. More on I Retire for Him.
Recreating Retirement is an interactive small group study helping you to move from nothing to what's next. You can join us on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. East Coast time on Facebook Live. Our goal for this study is to provide a group setting for interaction and new ideas while leading you through a first step in your journey from retirement to reformation. Here's the big idea. During the next 5 years, 5,000 small groups will experience this journey of discovery in churches and faith-based organizations across the country. Is your church a place where recreating retirement needs to be planted? Join us online to experience the study or prepare to lead a small group at your church or ministry. Email us at contact@retirementreformation.org or go to our website at retirementreformation.org. That's retirementreformation.org.
Hey, welcome back to I Retire for Him. As we do in every second segment of every show, we bring in somebody who could be retired, but is still living for the Lord and doing incredible things. Today we have Mike Henry from Follower of One. Find him online at followerof1.org. Bruce, I want to make sure Mike got on the show so that he could share a story about marketplace mission trips, because 5 years ago, when Mike should have been contemplating checking out and going on vacation the next 30 years, the Lord laid on him to start a brand new ministry called Follower of One. Mike Henry, talk to us about this. You could be retired. You're 65 years old, but God's not done with you yet. What's God got you doing?
Well, I formed an online community. I wanted to be around people who wanted their faith to matter. And even in the great church that I go to, there are a lot of people that are just checking boxes. And so I wanted to connect with people who wanted their faith to make a difference every day, not just when they were in the building. And so we formed the Follower of One online community. I actually was let go from my job. There was they laid me off right after we got the 501c3 approved for this ministry. And so I just started working on it more and more all the time.
So talk to us a little bit deeper about what Follower of One does.
Well, it's an online community designed to connect marketplace Christians and help us put our faith to work every day, or integrate our faith into our daily life. And one of the things that we do, one of kind of the benchmark event that we do to kind of get people started on this process is what we call a marketplace mission trip, which is a 2-week exercise where we challenge people to go to their own job like they're going on an overseas mission trip. In fact, we're doing number 28 of that as we record this. So we've had about 700 people do this so far, and people get very excited about their faith because they realize there are things that we can be doing every day with our faith, and we don't have to get permission from a pastor, or we don't run the risk of violating some diversity and inclusion laws. We can just be people who love our coworkers and make a difference with our faith.
Wow, what a beautiful vision of what Jesus called the church to be. And unfortunately, so often it is not the reality. And so as he calls us to bless our community and bless the people that he puts us in front of, be able to do that. Can you give us just a little more insight into what that activity would look like?
Certainly. Well, we came up with, for the most of my life as a Christian in the workplace, I became a Christian after I was already in the workplace. And I kept banging up against these things I couldn't do because the church wanted me to work at the church building or volunteer on some overseas mission trip or something like that. But I was too busy at work. And so I came up with 5 things that I believe we can all do every day in any workplace that put us on mission with Jesus. And that's pray, appreciate others, know what we believe, serve others, and speak for ourselves. And we talk about those 5 things in Fall War 1. We practice those for 2 weeks on the Marketplace mission trip, where we're actively and intentionally trying to do things just a little differently in our workplace today because we're Christ followers. And we see Jesus do these really cool things. And on every mission trip, there's some story or another that just catches everyone's heart because he's there working now and we get to join him.
Mike, one of the most powerful things you said to me 4 or 5 years ago was, as Christ followers, when we get invited to go on a short-term missions trip, we spend a whole year preparing our hearts and raising money and getting ready for a 1-week period of our lives. Yet, so many of us, in fact, 50 million plus of us Christ followers, spend 0 time getting ready for our daily missions trip to our workplace. And I call it a missions field because it's full of people who don't know Jesus yet. So that's a mission field. How significant is that understanding that we would spend time preparing to go on a short-term missions trip, but we don't spend time preparing our hearts for going to work?
Well, I think that's the kind of trap that we get caught in, right? We think there's nothing for us to do today. We just kind of let our guard down and we extend this sacred secular divide. We create this agreement with it by taking part of our life and walling it off. And I don't want to do that. I want my faith to be invading everything that I do every day. And so I pray for the people that I have calls with, and I ask God to use me in the lives of people. And guess what? He does it on a Tuesday.
Right. Let me ask you this question, Mike. For someone who is, made the transition from career into what the world calls retirement, is there an application of these 5 principles that can be applied in that context, even though they're not going to a workplace every day?
That's a great question, Bruce. I kind of default into this workplace terminology model because that's where I spent most of my career, but it works in any environment. And so praying and appreciating people, all we're trying to do is live in such a way that the people around us go, why are you doing this? And then we can explain to them that we do it because we follow Jesus. And it's natural, and it works if we're retired. It works if we're volunteering in some event, if we're helping our kids out with something. It works in every circumstance. It's just that all my examples and all my experiences in the workplace.
Oh, good. I'd like to have an off-program conversation with you and see if maybe we can package that in a way that will impact the 48 million Christ followers who are 65 and older, who are firmly committed to doing nothing. And we can give them an entry point into God's plan for their life and in their preferred future.
Yeah. So, one of the things we've been doing is actually custom tailoring these mission trips for churches and for groups so that they can take their members through it together, because people do it a little better when they do it with people they know. And so we'd be happy to talk about things like that with people as well.
Good. I look forward to it. Well, it's an amazing ministry.
It is. Thanks. So before we go, Mike, just let me ask you to give some words of encouragement. Our listening audience is pre-retirees and retirees who have, they're fighting with the confusion about what is retirement really for? And should I really retire? And is it biblical to retire in 30 years of this? What am I going to do? Encourage those listeners who want to become active and engaged and plugged into kingdom activities.
Well, you and I talked about this before, Jim. I always wanted to be in what we used to call full-time ministry. And God never arranged for me to go to work for some church or something. I've since kind of challenged that whole term and realized that ministry is just serving other people so that they might see Jesus. Mm-hmm. And when I use that definition and I talk about helping other people move one notch closer to Jesus, I see full-time ministry as me just helping the people I'm interacting with to move one notch closer to him. And I can do that anywhere, anytime. It's just flipping this switch in my brain. It actually begins, the first prayer we talk about is, here I am, Jesus. What do you want me to do next? And we do what he says.
Mike Henry, follower of one. Thank you so much for being on I Retire For Him today, for sharing a little bit of your story. Keep it going, keep impacting people, and make sure you and Bruce connect up offline. Mike Henry, thanks for being here today.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
We'll be right back with more on I Retire For Him.
Our work on this earth doesn't end when the paycheck stops. God calls us to be faithful for a lifetime. Whether you're looking forward to retirement or you're already there, our all-small group study, Recreating Retirement, will help you understand, engage, and activate what God has for you in this fourth quarter of life. Join Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Bruinsma as you consider your past, strengths, spiritual gifts, and your passions, and how they all come together as the call God has for you in these years. Connect with us on our online community group at facebook.com/Retirement Reformation, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, or if you'd like to bring Recreating Retirement to your church, email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org. Are you ready to start your life-changing journey today?
Hey, welcome back to I Retire For Him. What a great conversation with Mike Henry today, and Follower of One. Make sure you check him out online, followerof1.org. Bruce, we promised our listeners in segment 3 we would actually dig a little deeper into places we've seen that retirees can plug into our communities, because our communities have so many needs, and retirees often find extra time on their hands. And yes, as you mentioned earlier, they could watch sports on television. They can sit in their Adirondack chair and get those slats, just pasted onto their keister, or they can make a big difference. And you've got some things on your heart that are churning, that are really community, countrywide impacting. I love your idea. Well, let's just talk about it. I mean, how can retired couples, retired people come alongside those people considering fostering or adoption? Why don't you talk about your passion there?
Yeah, well, one of the things that God has just continued to reveal to us over probably the last 6 months was the tremendous needs that come out of issues of loneliness. We've talked about that on prior podcasts, and it's such a critical element. But who are these people that need support where, in fact, either loneliness or being overwhelmed is the reality of their life? And so it keeps them from experiencing the fruits of the Spirit. And as seniors, as grandparents, there's a concept, and let me just start with the concept and then we'll take the applications. It's the concept is being a support to another person or another group. You can call it wraparound grandparenting. And wraparound grandparenting can take all kinds of different patterns to it. It can be extreme. There can be extreme engagement, or there can be occasional engagement. Let's talk about some of the context of where that happens. There's a tremendous need in our country for adoptive parents, and for foster parents. We could spend a whole session just on that issue, and maybe we should do that at some point. But bottom line, there's about 400,000 young people that need to either be adopted or to find a foster home. The reason why that's so difficult and the number is so large is that being a foster parent often is very difficult and is very time consuming. And usually you're typically in your 30s or maybe 40s. And so you got a lot of things going on and your heart is called to be a foster parent. But then you get into it. And if you have difficult kids, it's really hard. So what you need is support. So what does that support look like? Support may look like a meal a week. Support might look like going to the ball game where the kids are and cheering for them, so the foster parent gets a little bit of a break. In some states and in some ways, to become licensed to be able to take the kids to the doctor, for example, to be able to go to school events, and to give the foster parents or even the adoptive parents, but the foster parents, a respite weekend where they can just breathe for a little bit. And so as older people, we all have the capacity to step into some version, some way, some method of that role. So when we talk about adoptive parents, foster parents, also single dads and single moms, tremendous needs. And I think as a church community, church big C, we're not really aware of those needs and those opportunities. Now, just simply making ourselves available to do things that we all can do fit into this category. So helping older seniors, we've talked on prior podcasts about Gray, that things that are resulting from loneliness that are just heart-wrenching. Gray divorce, gray bankruptcy, gray suicide, gray addiction, all from loneliness. And so to be able to track some older couples in and be visiting with them, not just make a call once a month, but actually visiting them and say, hey, let's go out for lunch, or let me bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches over, or, let's have some Oreo cookies, or whatever it may be, with older seniors. Then that whole issue of gray divorce. And so marriage mentoring is a role that many of us would be able to play. Just simply being able to share the pain and the activities of our own marriage. And Judy and I have been married for 61 years. We've experienced a whole bunch. And, some of it we've done really, really well. Some of it not so good. And so we can be an encouragement in there. Finally, one other.
I want to jump in there. I want to jump in there before you go into the last piece, because when you look at, yes, couples doing adoptions, couples doing fostering, absolutely critical to have really a community around them, and absolutely having older people that have some flexibility to be able to help out with meals or cleaning or whatever is fantastic. What I love about the marriage mentoring thing is just normal couples today, Bruce, and we're seeing it all the time, is that a lot of couples that are younger couples who maybe aren't doing adoptions, just having their own kids, they don't have grandparents that they have access to, and sometimes they don't even have parents that they have access to. And so adopting a young family, because a lot of times these young families need to know, what does a marriage look like that can last? Sometimes you need to learn to do basic things like cook and clean, change light bulbs. I mean, I'm amazed how many people, when their lamp socket goes out, they just throw the lamp away because they don't know how to change a socket on a lamp. And we all know that stuff. And so marriage mentoring, not only for people that are considering the fantastic move of adoption or fostering, but also just regular mentoring from pouring your life out into other couples that are just trying to figure out what's it look like to even be married. Because like you said, Bruce, you got 61 years and they haven't been all perfect. Martha and I got 37. Ours haven't been all perfect either, but we're committed and we're still married. And that's something a lot of couples don't see.
As a matter of fact, it's interesting when people ask us, what's the secret to your long marriage? And the answer is fairly simple. We didn't get divorced. And so it's a choice and it's a decision and it's a commitment. And when you make those and then able to build from there. So at Retirement Reformation, we're working on being able to provide some marriage mentoring classes and instruction and so on. Also, just the whole idea of mentoring, which is just simply coming alongside somebody else. Typically, it may be someone younger, but it may not be. My favorite breakfast place in town here, when I go there for breakfast, I typically find men from our church, older men, just having breakfast with younger men, and I kind of listen to some of their conversations. And it's just about the basic things of what does it take to be a dad? What does it take to be a man in this world? What does it take to be a Christian and a Christ follower in a culture that we are? So mentoring will be another focus of the Retirement Reformation that we'll be able to help with. And then the last one, Jim, is intergenerational prayer. The opportunity to, cross the years and for we older people to pray for younger people and for them to understand that we are praying for them and for them to learn what prayer looks like. And it's not intergenerational prayer with your family. It's intergenerational prayer where you are not blood connected. All the research shows that for young people, being connected with someone who's older or a number of people who are older, who are not family, but who love them and are concerned for them and are willing to come alongside them is just a really important part of our Christian community.
Bruce, you talk to organizations all across the country. Before we close out today's show, perhaps you could name some organizations that would love to have some senior volunteers be a part of their ministry as they expand and invest their lives into people across the country. What are some of those organizations that you love that you know could use some more volunteers?
Well, just about every Christian ministry can use two things: more volunteers and more money. And so as seniors, many of us have both time and financial resources. And so to be able to do that. So to come alongside Life Action, for example, as they do amazing ministry work around the country with churches, Bible distribution through Bibles for the World. Their goal is to distribute 1 million books of John in the next 5 years. And we're doing our best through our Oxygen for Life to help with that distribution. There are 50, no, that's not true. There are about 95 different foster organizations that are involved with fostering and adoption. They're all part of the CAFO network. And it just warms my heart when I talk to them and I hear the stories of how God's working through the lives of seniors and then the lives of the young people that are being mentored. So go to retirementreformation.org. We continue to show and list organizations there that we have vetted that are places that need your help. And if you can't figure out anything else, the rescue mission in your town is one of them, whatever it may be. I had breakfast this morning with the new executive director of Citygate, which is the association for all the rescue missions, Christian rescue missions, and the needs that they have, not only in homelessness, but all kinds of other family activities are absolutely huge. And they're doing a great job, but they need more help. And so that's another place you can step in. And finally, to just encourage your church and the other seniors in your church to be able to discover what God's call is for them, and then to encourage them to do it and be a model by how your life is lived.
Great list, Bruce. And I love that you reference, check out our website, retirementreformation.org, retirementreformation.org. So many resources out there, so many different ways to find out what God's call is on your life and what his purpose is for you in these next 3 stages of retirement. Please check us out online, retirementreformation.org. You've been listening to I Retire for Him, the voice and resource of the Retirement Reformation, with your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, Retirement Reformation's own founder, Bruce Brynsma. We're Christ followers journeying from retirement to reformation so we can ultimately say, I retire for Him.
I retire for Him.
Thanks for listening to I Retire for Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and Retirement Reformation founder, Bruce Brynsma. I Retire for Him is the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. Most Christians tend to follow the world's pattern of rest and self-pampering during retirement. However, in your retirement, you can be focused on God's unique call to love, serve, and help others. This can be your best season of life if you take advantage of a life's worth of knowledge and experience and combine it with a greater freedom of time and money and invest it all in the generations both preceding and following you. The Retirement Reformation is encouraging Christians to find and follow God's call in all seasons and aspects of life, especially in retirement. Take time to sign the manifesto at retirementreformation.org and explore the wealth of resources available on our site. Join this movement of God and journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him. Go to retirementreformation.org.